The actions from one of the largest U.S. home builders, D.R. Horton, continues to tell the story that despite the reduction of inflation, home buyers are still standing together, refusing to pay high prices for housing because they simply can't afford the mortgage payment. Melissa, according to this new Yahoo Finance article, D.R. Horton, again, one of the largest home builders in the United States, announced that in their fiscal fourth quarter, they had nearly a third of their buyers cancel contracts. And that is up actually almost 20%. That's buyer cancellations from just a year ago. And the big thing here, guys, it shows that there really isn't any relief in sight. I mean, these big builders, I mean, they have a lot of data, right? A lot of history, a lot of information. They're getting a lot of data that I don't have and you don't have, certainly. But the big indicator here that the housing market will continue this for quite some time, this downward spiral, is the fact that D.R. Horton is actually canceling their contracts to buy land, no matter how far down the road they are, or even the non-refundable deposits that they're unable to get back. And it's caused them to walk away from like $34 million reportedly from deposits. They're just walking away, leaving the money on the table because they know something much more than we do. Now, Melissa, we just had a, pretty in-depth conversation with one of the areas, at least Maryland's larger suppliers, privately owned company. I mean, they've been in business for 100 years. They supply builders, contractors with lumber and things like that. They're called National Lumber Company. We were actually live with one of the owners, right? Kevin Fruman, and just tell everybody what some of those comments were from Kevin the other night.
So what Kevin had mentioned during our interview with him is that the prices of lumber, they skyrocketed during COVID and they have come back down. But during that period of time, they were buying, not knowing where everything was going to go.
When COVID occurred, we took a very strategic road to start buying. And we bought it on the notion that if we did not have the material on ground for our builders, for our clients, that they would go elsewhere. So we ramped up and we bought everything we could. When the bust occurred, we had a lot of inventory at a very high cost. We had to flush it all out of our building. We were sending things out at a loss.
So clearly these national builders are feeling the pressure. I mean, we heard about them incentivizing the buyers, additional add-ons to the home. And then we also heard about them buying the mortgage rate down. So now to hear that they're walking away from the contracts they're already in for these land deals, it's becoming a huge problem.
Yeah, and through this last couple of years, a lot of the buyers, they were buying a new home because they didn't want to get involved in the bidding wars. So the builders were really marking up the lots. They were marking up the, premium prices on housing. They were increasing the pressure on buyers by only allowing, 4 sales or 5 sales a month in a subdivision. And, though the buyers didn't have to negotiate because they couldn't, they just looked at the price, had to be the first one to commit and get qualified. A lot of that inventory that was sold under that type of pressure tactic is just now getting completed. And a lot of the contract buyers they're pulling out. They're canceling contracts up to a third, right? The fourth quarter of their fiscal year. But what's happened is now they have this backlog of houses to build of higher prices. And, finance rates, a lot of the buyers' rate locks have expired. So as a result now, the builders are kind of stuck because they can't drop the price without upsetting a whole lot of other people. And we're seeing, locally here, we're seeing builders they're flipping the lots that they have to other smaller builders just to kind of shut things down. And the big thing is that we've seen, after talking to a big supplier here locally that supplies a lot of the builders' lumber, there really is not much end in sight because construction costs overall, even though they've come down from the height of the pandemic and the supply issues that we've had, the overall construction cost of materials and labor are through the roof. So these builders are kind of locked in. And a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of cost involved in just getting a property from its raw state to where it can break off lots You've got infrastructure, water, sewer, stormwater management, lots of fees and lots of time that's involved. And now these builders, they're in trouble.
There is a thin line here for margin of profit. So there isn't a whole lot of wiggle room when it comes down to negotiating these prices.
Yeah, and I think just like in 2008, these builders are just not going to have a choice but to start dumping properties, reducing prices, cutting their losses, despite how much it upsets other people in the subdivisions.
So this article goes on to say that what is really going to need to happen here is the stabilization of interest rates. And that is really the only hope that they have, that things are going to pivot and turn around to be the other way.
And I think that what we've come to realize is that rates are important, but I think at this point, the affordability of everything in someone's life is really preventing them from even pulling the trigger when we see the rates come down. I think that we're going to need to see rates drop as well as prices drop all around in order to make, this whole thing work.
It's also something that is reported is that the Mortgage Bankers Association has now said that the mortgage demand has dropped to a 22-year low. So that right there, I mean, we're getting red flags all over the place.
Yeah, and this article goes on to say that the historic increase in mortgage rates this year, sparked by the Federal Reserve's aggressive campaign to tame inflation, has pulled back the housing demand and crushed builder confidence. The article also goes on to say that another national builder, Pulte Group, has also indicated that purchase contracts have fallen through 28% from just a year ago. All right, so I want to give you all a couple of tips if you're going out home shopping. Number one, make sure that as a buyer, you are now in control. So you should be negotiating prices, concessions, and mortgage rate buydowns. Also know that you should be asking about those lots that they haven't released yet. Because if they have lots in the pipeline that have already been approved, a lot of these builders try and squash everything together to finish one street at a time. But maybe now the home builder will be willing to let you check out some of those untapped lots. And lastly, guys, don't feel pressured to sign a contract right away. Check out other houses that may be in that neighborhood that have since come up for sale, because you just may be able to buy that home in the same community for less money than they had even purchased it for just a few months ago. All right, guys, we'd love to hear your comments. You can drop them below, and thanks for watching this video.
If you like the video, you can let Todd and I know by hitting the thumbs up and sharing it with your friends.
And if you haven't already subscribed to Sachs Realty's channel, do so now and smash that alert bell. You'll know every time we upload content just like this. See you next time.
See you next time.
Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.